And finally, before we move into questions, we're going to hear from literally a global giant in the meat industry. It's a lot different than what I experienced with the dairy industry in California. You've literally got thousands or hundreds of thousands of producers and thousands, if not tens of thousands of customers on the back end. So I'm not going to reintroduce her. She was on stage yesterday, but our next speaker is Dr. Sarah Klopatek.
So I might be holding you up from a beer, right? All right, so we have no slides, and we're going to go quick. So I just want to start off by talking about our operations a little south of the border in Brazil. I want to talk about something that is really positive on decreasing methane. And what I always like to reference is that beautiful FAO report that came out with looking at the levers. And one of those levers was sustainable intensification. And what we have seen in Brazil is amazing, the change that's happened. They used to be food importers. Now they are food exporters. They have revolutionized their food system. And when it comes to beef, they've made massive changes in production style. They've gone to confinamentos, or feedlots. And that emphasis came because within the last 10 years, China said, hey, BSE, we do not want to be involved with that. You need to have 30 months or younger cattle coming towards us. And I don't know if any of you have worked with Nelore. Those are some fun girls. They're some rowdy cows. But to get them to get to the proper weight, you have to put them into feedlot, and that's what reduces their age, and that's how you can get under that 30 months. And so what we've seen is that we're having massive reductions in methane on an absolute and on an intensity basis, and we're seeing gains in food security. So that's just one positive story I wanted to say. When we look at the United States, it's kind of an interesting place to be at JBS. We're discussing what the word was, and the word is like the vortex. So when you look at our base of our cow herd in the United States, we have over 725,000 cow-calf producers. And I'm gonna say they probably don't all share one opinion, right? There's a lot of different mindsets. There's a lot of variety. They're in Maine, they're in Alaska, they're in Arizona, they're in California, they're in Florida, and they all have different mindsets, all have different cattle, all have different problems. And then when you go up there, the next chain of command, you have feeders. So there's about tens of thousands of feeders in this country. Then you have a variety of packers, but there's 4 big packers. And then the next loop is our customers. So those are, your food retailers, your restaurants, the Walmarts, your Costco's. There's tens of thousands of those. And then you look at the consumers. There's billions. The U.S. beef industry feeds billions of people. So you have billions of customers. And then that's going to be a whole lot of opinions when you reach billions of people. So how do you meet these 725,000 cow-calf producers to these billions of people, and how do you connect the dots? And we have to remember, what does the consumer care about? What is the number one thing? Audience, we're still staying awake till our beer. One more second. Yes. Okay, what was it? What's the number one thing consumers care about? There we go. Number 2, anybody? Safety. I like that one. The taste. There is assumption when you talk to you as consumers, they're going to assume there's an assumption that our food supply is safe, and we do have one of the safest food supplies in the world, so that's good. So price and taste. Now, we've seen some research about consumers' willingness to pay. And willingness to pay is brilliant. I have also done one of those. But when you start looking at SKUs, so when you go and you SKU your product, the significant difference starts to erode away. Why is that? Because when I fill out a survey and it says, will you donate to this charity? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do the good thing. But then when I go to Walmart and it says, do you want to round up to another $1? I'm like, no. I'm sorry, that's bad, but that's a lot of our consumers, right? They're like, well, we don't want to pay more. And that gets very tricky. So I remember during COVID, I was hiding in an apartment in Woodland while finishing my PhD. My professor was glad because I actually finished my dissertation in time. But I remember the prices of meat were going ballistic, and I was like, oh my goodness. So maybe I'll break into the lab and take out some of my research stakes. I didn't. But I remember the price. So it was around $5.25 on a national average for ground beef. I just looked up for March's report, it was $5.79. So we had that fear of COVID and how expensive everything was. It's even more expensive now. And so it's challenging when we look at sustainability and decreasing emissions to just have a value add label. At this time, it's gonna be challenging to have a value add. But like Brazil, we saw a lever pull. We can't pull that lever in the United States. You know, everything is in feedlots. But I think what was brilliant was what Steve Wooten brought up. And I'm really glad that Dr. Sam Worth put that panel on, because he said there is still some low-hanging fruit. And I don't think it means that it's gonna be easy to accomplish, but we have phenomenal extension in this country. And so all the extension agents here, huge shout out. You do brilliant work that is incredibly important. And what that means is we're talking about reproduction efficiency, improving our open cows, improving genetic management. Are you picking the right bulls? Are you doing AI? Grazing management, all of these things. They're gonna be little gains, but there are gains that are still to be had. And it gets challenging, again, when you have 725,000 cow-calf producers, and I think Joanna pointed out brilliantly, the industry is now looking for less of a value-add label or a pilot project, and like, how do we get into the weeds and grow together? And I think there is a lot of positive there. I think there's a lot of possibility that can happen, and I think it is gonna be on the ground with our extension advisors, our veterinarians, our professors, NRCS, all these guys coming together to continue to look to get better. And I think with that, we will see gains, we will see decreases in methane, but maybe it's not the way that we originally thought. It's the tiny little get better day by day. Because as we know, we have a very extensive beef production system. It's going to be different than dairy, but it doesn't mean there's not solutions. So with that,